Hi, everyone. Dom Famularo here. Thanks so much. This is great. This is Mapex All Access. So what I love about this is that, again, on my Monday afternoons, I get a chance to kind of meet up with some great dear friends and some phenomenal musicians and teachers and educators. And today I've got Keith Dudek. Keith, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Dom. I appreciate it.
This is fantastic to have this time with you. And, you know, Keith, it's amazing because you are busy doing a million different things. And just as the intensity comes by with this crazy pandemic that has hit us, you've made some changes with your studio and what you're doing. So I want to hear all about it. And if we can, I want to start first with just again, what started you into drumming? What was it with just some of the beginning anecdotes of what got you involved with playing this crazy instrument?
I tell you, growing up outside of Detroit, Michigan, watching stuff on TV, seeing Kiss and Led Zeppelin and all the great bands of the 70s when I was a kid, you know, early mid 70s, and I was just inspired by music and I thought it was awesome. So I started taking guitar lessons in 5th grade, and that didn't work out so well. So I did that for about 3 months. And then I moved on to some different things. And then in 7th grade, I ended up started joining school band. And I was all the way through middle school, high school, and college. And then I marched drum corps. And it's been a fun life the whole time ever since.
That is fantastic. How important was the school band program for you as a young kid?
It was very important. It was huge. It was I had a fantastic educator by the name of Mr. Lewis Wilson in Michigan, and he was an incredible role model and mentor and educator, and taught me the love of music. And I think by the time I was in eighth grade, 13 years old, I had decided at that point that I was going to do music the rest of my life. And he was the reason for that. So I'd like to thank Mr. Lou Wilson right now for that. Great educator, changed my life.
How amazing to have an inspiration like that and a mentor like that, that really, really kind of set the pace in your heart to want to follow music and continue doing this here. What do you think he saw in you?
Maybe he saw potential. Maybe he saw a high level of musicianship, or just a desire for creating sounds and getting better, improving. I don't really know what he saw, but I sure am grateful for his tutelage and legacy that he's given me. It's been awesome.
How fantastic. So what was it about guitar when you were taking guitar? What was it about guitar that didn't sit well with you?
As I look back now, what I know now as an adult musician, I have a couple of guitars and I play every now and then, and I've played since then, learned things on my own. I think what happened was I had a really bad instrument. So it was super hard to play. The action was really bad. The strings were far off the neck and it wasn't set up properly. And I really enjoyed my first teacher that I had, which was a younger guy in his mid-20s. For 3 months, and then he went off on the road on tour, and then I got this kind of older, crusty kind of guy. So and it wasn't quite as inspiring for me, and it was hard to play the instrument. It was painful. So it wasn't that. I think all those things combined were the reason why I got out.
Well, interesting points. I mean, the first thing is having an instrument that works well that you can play is an extremely important part, and this is what I love about Mapex. They make such a great product that we have, this high quality product as we're playing.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is having really good instruction. I mean, the teacher can make or break that student at such a high level.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And that's what pushes me as an educator and teacher now, because of experiences like that with the guitar. I want to make sure that kids do have the right sticks and the right drum pad and the right equipment and drums and cymbals and the metronome and all that kind of stuff. It's a package deal. It's a big deal.
So how old were you when you got your first drum set?
13. Yep.
Do you remember what that kit was?
It was a brand called Dixie. You remember those?
I do remember those, yes.
Yeah, there's old I think it was a Taiwanese import.
Yeah.
Or China import. So yeah, it was my first drum set. I was happy to have it,
So
now, you do your best with what you have, right? I mean,
absolutely, man. And the great thing is at least you had a drum set.
Absolutely.
just and not just a snare or a piano player. You were like playing a full kit. So what was it? Who were you listening to? Were there bands that you were specifically kind of honing in on?
Like I said before, I was listening to Kiss and Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith, all of the bands of the mid 70s that were more rock type stuff because I was growing up in Detroit. So we listened to mostly rock radio, and it was really fun, man. It was a good time. I'd, sneak in some Beatles in there and whatever. When I first started playing, whatever I could listen to on the radio that I felt like I could play along with, that was the stuff that I would listen to.
Boy, it's amazing. The Detroit area, what great music came from that area of just
Absolutely.
The Motown stuff and all that music that came out of that area. So many great musicians came from Detroit.
Yep. Real drummers, right?
Yeah.
Drummers that played drum fills in their music. Live acoustic drums. Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. Those bands that played where they were, especially when they were recording, where there was the band was most of the time in just one room playing and feeding off of each other, and everyone kind of, the mics were bleeding into each other, but that's the sound that Detroit created.
Absolutely. And it's made a big impression on me too, growing up there and living there and being around that historical area and just listening to the funk and the R&B and all that stuff, because I was heavy into funk too, my early age coming up playing drum set, and it's definitely affected me with groove and pocket and all that stuff.
Boy, that's absolutely. So were there certain bands you were starting to play with? Were there friends that you were getting together with now to jam?
Yeah, I was getting together with friends, jamming in the basement and stuff like that, trying to put together little bands and things like that, playing to records and cassette tapes and stuff at the time. And then I got into a polka band, actually. A wedding polka band that I played in my junior and senior year in high school. So we did polka festivals and weddings, and it was a blast. It was fun.
How incredible, right? You're playing, people are dancing, you're getting paid.
It was a dream come true. The first gig I got paid. I said, I'm getting paid for this? Like, wow. It was awesome.
Hey, a lot of those gigs, they fed you too on top of that, right?
Absolutely. Good food. Big Polish weddings. You got to love that.
So that experience of playing, so who was in the band at that time? Were there accordion players, or who were you playing with?
I think there was an accordion player. I played kit, and then there was a trumpet player and I think a bass player. And it was really small band, like 4-piece, but we made a lot of sound, and it was fun, and it was different, and it was really good experience for me. Very, very good. I was so glad I got to do that.
Boy, playing with those live dates and playing those kind of performances where you really have to keep time, people are dancing, you've got to keep the energy going. Those are really great learning experiences at many aspects of learning our craft.
Absolutely. And I'm glad I had access to good education up to that point. So I was already working with a metronome, working on groove and timing and all that kind of stuff. So that really, really helped a lot. So,
well, what an incredible advantage to have as a young kid. So how long did you do that for?
I was probably in that band for about a year, most of my senior year in high school.
Then what went on to from there? What was the next?
Then I went on to go to college. I went to Grand Valley State University outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I went there for 2 years and did a bunch of stuff. I was in rock bands while I was there and working on a music major degree. And I loved the music part of it, but academics weren't my strong suit. So I ended up getting out after 2 years. But right as I got out of that, I auditioned for Madison Scouts, drum and bugle corps, and I actually made it. And I marched on the snare line of the Madison Scouts for 3 years in 86, 87, and 88.
So what prepared you for the chops that you needed to play with Madison Scouts?
The university experience of marching band and high school marching band, that definitely helped a lot. Watching drum corps a lot, listening to it, trying to adapt, trying to listen to it and play along with that kind of stuff. That was a big deal. Right. Doing all the rudimental solos, the Wilcoxon stuff and the Pratt book and all that kind of stuff. The Mitch Markovich solos, played all those in high school, the Winter and, Tornado and all that stuff. All that stuff all contributed, I think, to that. And also being back then, I think being a music major when I tried out for Madison Scouts, I think that was a big difference maker because I remember to this day, they had me sight read at the end of the audition, and they had it written on a blackboard. Someone had just written out like a 20 measure snare thing, and I sight read it perfect. I remember I did it just note for note.
How incredible.
And back then, they did drum, they taught by rote. They would play a lick and then the kid would learn it. Like, because a lot of the kids weren't good readers in drum corps back then. And because I was a music major, I did it. They couldn't believe I played it perfect. They said, play that again. And I played it perfect again. So I think that was a huge deal, that they knew I was a great reader and a great rounded musician. I also tried out on quads and snare drum. So that helped my, I think, audition as well.
Interesting. So,
but back then it was different. I have to say this real quick. Back then, it's opposite of it is now. Back in the 80s, there was about 10% of the kids that were in the drum corps that were music majors and 90% that weren't. Now it's the opposite. It's about 90% music majors now and 10% not, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So that's really changed over the years with education.
Boy, that has changed dramatically, and I have witnessed that and seen that also with the students that I teach for sure. So how did you prepare your reading? You went through, and these are, Will Coxon book, All American Drummer, the John Pratt book, 14 Modern Contest Solos. These are important books to go through.
Right.
That a lot of people don't understand, that's going to give you not only great reading skills, but your chops are going to be screaming when you go through these books.
Absolutely. Yeah, those books transformed my playing. There's no question about it. And like I said, also doing the Markovich solos, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Great material. I just, the practice pad, the sticks, and the metronome, and just working technique. And, and I also went to a lot of clinics. I also went to things in the summertime. I went to Interlochen during the summer in high school.
Nice.
Attended Interlochen. And I also went to the Ludwig Percussion Symposium in Madison, Wisconsin. I think it was 81 or 82. I'm not sure. Did you go to that? Were you there?
I went to several of them. Who was there at that time?
Carmine Appice, Alan Dawson. I'm trying to think who else. Lee Howard Stevens was just starting to do four mallet stuff.
Oh, incredible.
He'd written his book, and everybody was just blown away because that was just starting. Four mallet marimba stuff. So
that's. I remember when I was a student of Joe Morello at that time, and Joe used to go to all of those and teach those also, and he loved them, and they were great symposiums that went on. So you went to that. Just talk about Interlochen. Interlochen is a really special school. Let's talk about what they do there.
Well, Interlochen for me was an excellent experience. I went for the 2-week session in the summer, and they also had, I think, 6 or 8 week sessions as well.
Yeah.
And I went up there for 2 whole weeks, and we practiced every single day and rehearsed hard. We had a percussion specialist that would work with us. We had individual practice time, and then we'd work on the songs, the music for the concerts, and we would do a concert every week. And boy, that was super, super high level experience for me. I'm so glad I did that, signed up for it and went, and I was exposed to other great players. Most of the staff was from the University of Michigan music department, which is very high level. And I cherish those days, those moments. I'm grateful that I had parents that could support me and pay for that kind of stuff and really encourage me to go to the next level, and my band director as well. Going back to what you were saying about reading, I don't want to skip around here, but the sight reading thing, I have to give credit again to my educator, Mr. Wilson, because we sight read all the time in our band class, all the time, all year long. And that transformed me as a reader. I became a great reader because of him.
What a great skill to learn. I mean, even though some people kind of shy away from reading today, because now if they're playing with certain bands, it's not like the bands bring in charts anymore. When I was younger, every band that I played in had charts. You had to read everything.
Right.
A very different necessity years ago. Now people they get together, they jam, and they write their own songs. Reading music isn't as prevalent as it was then. But I mean, that's an incredible skill that you learn, that you have, that is still paying off big time for you now.
Absolutely. As an educator, it's huge too. I have to say to people out there, whoever's teaching, it doesn't matter what you're teaching in any kind of music, whatever instrument or pedagogy or whatever, being a great reader as a teacher goes a long way. Because when kids bring things in, as they do with you when you teach, when kids bring in things to work on for all-state things and mid-state and all kinds of different things like that, auditions for college, university, drum corps, you can read right there with them. And you can sight read it, and you can work on it with them. And if you're not a good reader, man, it makes it a lot tougher.
Well, it makes it tougher. And as an educator, man, that's a very, very important skill to have in the process. So now you're getting all this stuff. You went to certain clinics. Were there any specific clinics that you could think of that stand out for you?
Yeah, I remember going to see Carmine when I was young, man. I was probably 9th grade, and wow, I couldn't believe it. And I also saw him at the Ludwig Percussion Symposium, and I just liked his attitude and just kind of how he went after it. And, you know, he just had that rock and roll spirit. And I love his book. I still teach out of his book, Realistic Rock, to this day. I just think it's a great rock book. And I think it's well written, where it starts super easy and it just progresses step by step, very, very slowly and consistently. And you could go through that book in 2 weeks and realize, wow, I'm a better player. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
It's so well written, I think, from the beginning. He was one of my biggest clinics that really got me early on, for sure.
Carmine was always this way. I've known Carmine probably for, I would probably say, over 50 years. Where I live on Long Island, I grew up in a town called Baldwin, and the next town over was Oceanside. So I was teaching in Baldwin, and Carmine was teaching in Oceanside. So I had to meet him through the schools that we were at an early age, and he was always a great educator. And then, of course, when Vanilla Fudge hit, it was just an explosion of he became a rock and roll superstar. And then, as the story goes, Led Zeppelin in the early days opened up for the Vanilla Fudge.
Right.
And it was there that Carmine realized that John Bonham was playing a small little jazz kit. He said, listen, you got to play bigger drums. He organized through Ludwig to get bigger drums. He organized through the civil companies to get them hooked up. And then Bonham went to a completely bigger set. And, of course, the rest is history. So being influenced by someone like Carmine is absolutely fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, it was really, really cool. I enjoyed it. And he was always super nice when you go up and meet him and stuff and do autographs and buy the books and all that kind of stuff. He was just a nice, genuine guy. He was cool.
So you're doing this here now. So you're playing with different bands now. You're starting to kind of get a feel for what's happening, and you're committing to this becoming a lifestyle for you. So what was the next step for you? Did you start to were you just meeting more musicians or just doing more playing and different gigs?
Yeah, I did a couple of different rock gigs while I was in college for the first 2 years, and did that around the Grand Rapids, Michigan area.
Yeah.
We did some gigging. We did a couple of video contests when MTV was big and all that. That was fun. That was a good time. I got to meet a lot of really good players. I got to do some recording session work when I was there. So that was really good for me because that was the first time I ever did it. The exposure was excellent. And then as I got into drum corps, I still continued to play drum set all the way through that. So I was mixing in, getting my hands better. Then I would apply that to the drum set. And it just was great. I also went to recording engineering school in between some drum corps years too, as well, to try and just further my musical knowledge and everything I was doing.
Boy, that had to help out tremendously, especially now that you've got your own studio in your house and you're doing your own stuff here.
Right.
I'm sure it comes in very handy.
Yeah, it made a big, big difference. And it actually helped me get into recording on my own at the time, writing songs and playing piano. I also took piano lessons from 9th grade all the way through college. And I would suggest that to anybody who plays any instrument.
Yeah.
If you are serious about music and you want to go into music, it doesn't matter what instrument you play, I suggest you take piano lessons because I think it's the best way to learn music theory.
Boy, great point. Great point. You know, and you talk about this marching head that you were in, and then of course this drum set. A lot of times they don't blend that well. We've got a question here from Kevin Lehman. Kevin Lehman is a phenomenal drummer in the Colorado area. He's also the president of the PAS chapter in Colorado. Phenomenal player, and he's taken some lessons with me. And he said. Many have trouble making the transition from the technique used in drum corps to drum set technique. How were you able to navigate the different demands, touch, technique, and feel-wise between the different types of playing? Great question, Kevin. Thanks.
Yes, Kevin's a great guy. I met him at NAMM about 4 years ago at the Sabian Education Network.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Kevin's a great guy. Thank you, Kevin. My answer to that question would be, I was lucky enough to play drum set before I marched in drum corps. And I was even playing drum set before I did marching band in high school. So that gave me, I think, a distinct advantage. Already being able to be on kit, learning groove and touch and feel and pocket and all that kind of stuff, at least the beginnings of it. And then getting into the technical marching stuff, I think, I don't know, for me personally, it was a blend always. I always was marching drumline and drum set. And it was never one or the other. It was, for me, it was always a blend. But for the people who just do drum corps, I would suggest making sure that they change the mindset, because drum corps and drumline has a certain kind of focus and attention to it, but to detail and all that kind of thing. And you're looking to not make mistakes, and you want every rhythm to be perfect. You have to play with other people in a team. Drum set's more of an individual sport. Drumline is a team effort. So you gotta, when you get on that drum set, I would totally suggest you listen to your favorite music, just groove along to it. Mostly for drum set play or drum corps guys getting on drum set, I would say forget about the chops. Leave the chops back in the drumline zone. Yeah. Work on groove, groove, groove. Just sit there and play time. Make it feel good. That's the biggest thing that I would say.
Boy, fantastic, Kevin. Thank you so much. So, do you have, if you have students that are drum corps people that start out at drum corps, do you then maybe introduce them to the drum set?
Yes, I try through my teaching to introduce drum set to all of my students. It doesn't matter what they're interested in. I have kids that come and play just marimba. That's all they want to play is 4-mallet marimba. And I say, no, we got to do snare drum. Let's get into some timpani, and let's touch on some drum set too. Yeah. Some of my finest classical, orchestral type percussion kids, I really try and push them to do drum set, because I tell them, you're not really a rounded percussionist, even as a concert guy, unless you, or girl, unless you can play drum set as well at a basic level. It doesn't have to be super crazy chops and all that and soloing and crazy fills, but I think everyone should learn how to play drum set in a basic way, no matter what instrument you play in the percussion family. I think it's important for a well-rounded approach. And it's great for coordination for people. I don't think people realize percussionists who are taking just training for school band, once they start to play drum set, things really start to open up for them, because the coordination 4-limb thing really opens up their mind and overall helps with coordination. And I think it makes a big difference as a musician.
Well, that's fantastic advice. So what books do you recommend for someone if they're, what drum corps books do you recommend, and what drum set books do you recommend that find the blend? You mentioned, Wilcoxon and Pratt and Carmine's book. Are there any other books that you kind of guide them along the way with?
I would suggest Ed Freytag's book, The Rudimental Book is a really good book. That's a good rudimental thing. That's one of the highest selling snare books out there.
Yeah.
That's a really good book. That's on roll-off. I'm trying to think. Scott Johnson's got several books. There's a bunch of stuff with Blue Devil stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff on tapspace.com as well.
Interesting.
They have a lot of stuff from Cavaliers and Santa Clara Vanguard.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of books that have come out with that kind of stuff too. Just look around. There's a Grid Series book. Have you heard of that?
Absolutely.
It's called the Grid Series.
Grid Series, yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, and that's really, really good for snare chops, top quads, bass drums, all that. Just getting your hands going, getting things clean.
Yeah.
That is a lot of just patterns, grid patterns over and over again. Just making sure you play consistent diddles and accents and taps, and most of the stuff from stick control and accents and rebounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Master Studies, Joe Morello.
Absolutely.
All those great books.
Well, those are all great handbooks to really understand hand technique. I always say, hand technique, which is kind of interesting, is that it's hand technique is an important thing to study, because that's what's going to give you the tools and the freedom to be able to express what's on your mind that you want to, translate out. And working on these books is really an important part of drum set education.
Absolutely. I can't preach enough about that to my students and to anyone who's listening today. I have my drum pad with me. I take it with me everywhere. I have a pad, sticks, and a metronome, and I take it everywhere, wherever I travel, whether it's vacation, business, whatever. And man, I can't stop doing the basics. I just love them. I love doing the basic fundamentals over and over again, still repetitive, just making sure I have my stuff together. You know, it's really, it's been the fundamental. The snare drum technique for me has been the cornerstone of my whole musical experience. It really has.
Boy, how fantastic. We got a question from Carlos Guzman, who was a phenomenal drummer himself. He played with a band called the Letterman several years ago, and the Letterman were huge. They were like, you know, a singing group, and he played in Vegas and all around the States and traveled. And Carlos is also a drum tech, and he works with Max Weinberg and Jerry Brown and all these great drummers to assist them with what they're doing. He's down in the Florida area. He says, Keith, I read in one of your bios that a big band you were playing in opened up for the Buddy Rich Big Band. What was that like? Oh my gosh.
Totally life-changing. It was at Grand Valley State University. I was playing in the big band there, and we had a concert, and the director of the big band that was teaching me wanted to inspire me and get me going and kind of kickstart me in the big band drumming thing more. And he said, hey, I got a really good surprise for you. And I said, what? And he said, I'm bringing in Buddy Rich to play for our concert. I'm like, oh my God, it's a game changer. Total game changer. Wow. I mean, just to watch him play live, that's the first time I'd ever seen him. I was 18 years old, and it was that's a game changer. Wow.
About what year was that?
1985.
85. Buddy died in 1987.
Right.
So at that time in 85, he passed away at 69. So he's about 67 years young, which happens to be how old I am right now. So it's kind of
congratulations.
Thanks. So
you're aging well.
Well, thanks so much. Well, I don't know. Sometimes thank God I've got a good camera here to make me look a little bit better. What was it like? You know, you're sitting on the side of the stage. Listen, it doesn't get any deeper than Buddy when it came to the instrument. What was that like when you were sitting there watching?
It was mind blowing, and I'd seen videos of him at the time before, and seen him on the Tonight Show and all that kind of stuff. But I'd never seen him live or anyone like that live. So it was surreal. I mean, I was kind of like, it was like a really out of body experience almost, because I'd never seen anybody play like that before. It's mind blowing. It's hard to express it in words because you see it. It's metaphysical. It's like the guy it was a spiritual level almost, you know.
It's so amazing that you say that. And the fact that you had in your lifetime. I had the chance of meeting Buddy and knowing him the last 16 years of his life. So I mean, and every time I saw him, which was well over 50 or 75 times, every time he came to New York, I see him, and it was just he really just played at such a depth of. He gave everything he had at that moment when he played. Every single performance. So what you witnessed that close, and you opened up for him. I mean, that in itself must have been pretty tense.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got to pinch yourself. I mean, it's that was definitely a game-changing experience. I'm so blessed. I've had such good things happen for me so many times in my life. And meeting you as well at PASIC and NAMM, and just it's been awesome. It's been a fun life.
Oh, how well,
if I die tomorrow, I've had a good life.
You've got a long life ahead of you, and we need you to kind of continue doing what you're doing, because it's so positive for sure. Now, talking about, do you play? Is there a church market that you play in? You play at the church?
Absolutely, I play at a church that's really close to my home. I live really close to it. They call it a mega church. It's a non-denominational church, which is Bible led. They read out of the Bible. The pastor does. It's Pastor Alan Jackson. The church is called World Outreach Church, and it's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And it's about 8,000 or 9,000 people attend. So it's a massive church, but it's all broken up in different sanctuaries. So the largest sanctuary seats 3,000, and I play there on the weekends. But there's several other drummers that play there too. So they rotate us all, and I also play for the youth groups, which is really cool. I'm grateful that they bring me in for that as well, because I can work with the younger musicians in the band and help them along on bass and keyboards and guitar and all that. It's a wonderful ministry. But anyway, playing at that church has been a super blessing. As soon as I moved to this area, to Nashville, I got involved in that church, and it's been a blessing ever since. Stephen V. Taylor is the music director there, and he's very experienced. And playing in that church has been a spiritual experience for me as well as musical. It's allowed me to play with people like Charlie Daniels, Michael W. Smith, and be able to do worship services at the downtown hockey arena in Nashville in front of 10,000 people. And it's been a blessing on so many levels, even spiritually.
Boy, that is such a beautiful blend of being able to use your art form for a higher power. What is it? I mean, they have such great musicians that play in these churches. You know, that it's just so amazing, the high level of musicianship and just the gear they have. I mean, it's a real professional high-end show.
It really is, Dom. It's amazing because they have it so set up there. When I go to the church to play, really all I have to do is bring a stick bag and bring my sticks and sit down. The kit's set up. It's mic'd. We have Aviom in-ear system to where you can adjust all the different instruments that you're listening to individually. It's great music direction. It's very organized. The charts everything's weeks ahead. It's really, really cool.
And are these all, original songs that you're playing, or are you doing some pop stuff? How's that work out?
It's mostly church music that's played, published Christian music, church stuff that's played all over the country and all over the world.
All right.
Music, contemporary Christian music, CCM is what it's called. And there's kind of almost like a top 40, if you will, of that stuff. Right. That's real popular. People listen to it on the radio, and that transfers to doing it at church for worship and stuff like that. But our church does have some original music that we do as a staff. I'm not involved in that, but we have some writers on our staff as well, and we do some original music that we write from our own church as well.
Well, how incredible! It blows me away, when I hear about different drummers talking about playing in church and the intensity and the professionalism and the skills that you have to have and the skills that you learn by playing in these situations. And sometimes things will change. What you rehearse, they might throw a song at you, and you've got to really be prepared to what the heck is going on.
Absolutely. And it's been tremendous for me as a musician to do the church stuff as well, from that standpoint of being able to change gears immediately. If you got your ears in and the music director says, all right, we're going to the chorus now. All right. And, all right, go to the bridge or whatever. Sometimes you're just on the fly. And then other times it's click tracked, and it's all the whole song's tracked, and everything's perfect, and the chart's exactly the same. So you have both of those worlds. You have the completely planned, structured, and the completely unstructured, free for all, and everything in between. So yeah, it's an awesome experience.
And what's the instrumentation? How many musicians do you have playing with it?
Generally, we're doing a lot of acoustic now because of the pandemic stuff. We've been doing a lot of outdoor church. We're just now starting to move inside more. But it's mostly an acoustic setup, which would have drum set, bass guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, sometimes a dobro, sometimes a mandolin, usually a violin is involved, and about 4 or 5 singers, a lead singer, and then 4 or 5 other background singers.
Boy, how fantastic. What a great fun band to play in.
Yep. And sometimes we'll do stuff with choir as well. And that's always a great experience. And I did want to mention too, I want to give a shout out to Stickyard. I don't know if you've ever seen them or heard of them. You should check those out. Everybody should check them out. It's a group that's based out of St. Louis, and it's a percussion group that primarily does stuff in church, but they also do some corporate events. And I got to play with those guys, and it's just a wonderful, huge percussion experience with taiko drumming and drum set and drum line and hand drumming and cajon stuff and shakers and everything. I mean, they touch on all of it. And I suggest people to look it up, Stickyard, without the C, S-T-I-K, yard.
Now that you mentioned it, I do remember talking to them and seeing what they're doing. I mean, this is a full percussion, intensity.
Absolutely.
Boy, that is so good. Boy, what great experiences. So now the pandemic has hit, it's been well over a year. It's been absolutely insane to see the change of how people's lives. What's happened? How have you handled this with even your teaching business and what you're doing?
Well, the first thing I did was I think I got my technology a little bit more together. I bought a better phone. And then I started doing online lessons, virtual lessons with FaceTime and Skype. That's pretty much still what I do, because I don't do as many virtual lessons as other people. I do mostly in person because that's what I prefer.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as the pandemic kind of started to settle down a little bit and people started feeling safer about it, I brought people in as soon as I could, like by summertime. It was like June of last year. I had in-person lessons going. Because some of the kids, I just don't think some students, it doesn't work as well for some as others.
We have to be as adaptable as possible for how students like to learn.
Right.
And, so when they come to you, you have the right distance. Are they wearing masks? How do you deal with all that?
Well, when we first did it, we did masks early on because everyone did it because we didn't know what was going on. No one knew.
Yeah.
And then it just slowly kind of faded into just using masks less and less in my home. I just make sure I sanitize before I teach out of my home. I have a home studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I just make sure I sanitize and keep it clean and make sure everyone knows. And we're just super communicative about if anybody got exposures or anything like that. If someone got exposed, then no lessons. We go to virtual, and it's okay. Now we're all used to it, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of common practice now. But yeah, early on it was weird. And I wanted kids to come here to lessons to my home because I wanted to see them, because I wanted interaction with people, because I think this pandemic's been horrible for us as humans because it's kind of put us in our basements, keeping us away from each other. And I don't think that's good for us as people,
Well, it definitely has altered the habits that we were used to, and being able to adapt to this is a whole other world. So you put your studio together and you map this out. So what was it like putting the studio together? You had to kind of, map out a plan of attack, right?
Yeah, I kind of got some lights and I got a backdrop and I hung it up and changed some things around and got a little phone holder to hold my phone up there while I'm doing the lessons and stuff like that. Yeah. Now I'm doing more on laptop now, but with the phone, yeah, it was a big change for me. I wasn't used to that. Now you've been doing lessons like that for years, haven't you?
Oh, I have. I think I was one of the first 20 some odd years ago when it was still dial-up, and I did it that way because of my global travels. I had students from all around the world that just could not get to me, to afford to come by, and so I started doing it that way. And now I've got all my students. I'm doing them now, all of them on Zoom. I send them a link and we lock on. And it is fantastic that I've got, thousands of students that I'm teaching around the world, and I'm reaching them, and it's able to have the confines of there are advantages. They're not driving to the lesson, so they're not spending an hour plus time to get to the lesson, doing an hour lesson, and then driving an hour and plus back. So I tell them, since you're not making the drive here, you've got more time to practice now. 1, 2, are you there? I think you froze. Oh my gosh. I think Keith is frozen. So let's see if I think I'm still going on here. So let's see if we can get Keith back to, let me see if I can take him out and bring him back in again. Let's hide him here and bring him back into the stream here. Let's see what we have here. Let's bring Keith back in. 1, 2, testing 1, 2. Keith, where are you? Hello. 1, 2. Well, as you can see with technology, what we're just talking about, me teaching using Zoom and these different things, and you can see some of these challenges happen in the course of time. Let's see if we can get Keith back in. Let's see if we can get Keith. Come on, Keith, where are you? Let's see if we can get him back in here. And what happens with technology is exactly this. Sometimes this happens with my students, where all of a sudden it'll go out, and we have to just learn to be patient to bring them back in, to learn the process of how we can understand the technology to our advantage. I've got several cameras in my studio. I use Zoom cameras, and I've got the Zoom 2QN 4K cameras, which is really kind of a high quality camera. And I've got them adjusted all around the drum so you can see, like here's one right here. That's a side angle. I've got a camera for an overhead up here. You come back here, overhead up here. I've got 2 overhead microphones and a camera. And I've got a camera down here for a foot cam, so you can see my feet in the process. And with that, I'm able to switch to different camera angles so a student can see the different angles that I'm teaching. And by them seeing the different angles, it's really kind of interesting to find out that there's an incredible amount of reach that we can have by doing these lessons this way, and having the ability to be able to have an incredible amount of insane lessons worldwide. So we can reach these students worldwide. Let's see if I can bring in Keith back again. Where are we here? Keith, is he here? Nope. Keith is not logged on. Let me see if I can I'm going to text Keith real fast to let him know that we don't have him here. Let's see. Let's go into here. Check this out. So what you're experiencing is exactly the insanity of what we have here. Let's go back over here. Into existing. Let's see here. Keith Dudek here. Let's go to here. Mobile phone. Let's go to here. Let's send a message here. Update here. Check this out. Send message. Come back in. Let's see what we have here. So as you can see with this here, having different cameras and having the different ability, being able to have switchers, so you can have, that really kind of works out well with the students for them to be able to see the clarity of me showing them feet technique, and I pull in my foot cam and they see it. It's crystal clear, and they've got a large screen of the technique that I'm showing them. And the other advantages of what I see from them, that I can go back and I can see them on their own kit. You know, I get to see them in their own studio working on their kit. And when I see their kit, I can then see what they're using. Are they playing, sitting back too far from the drum set? Are the cymbals too high? The location of the drums, their form, their posture. It allows me to see them on their own kit. So there are certain advantages to where the world is at right now in the process. So it's kind of fun to see. Let's see if I can get any questions here. Here's one, Ray Ordet. Hey, Dom, I see that 1880 era Civil War drum. That's a big beauty. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Ray. This drum here, believe it or not, that's a Mohler drum. Sanford Mohler designed that drum. It's a 17-inch rim by 17 inches deep. And Mohler wanted that level of understanding in the drum itself. Let me see if I can pull Keith up here. Is Keith over here? Accept. Keith 1-2, are you there?
Yeah, I can't get my computer to work. I think the internet went down because of the ice storm here.
All right. Well, I'm still talking to everybody. We're still live on here, so keep on trying. I've got you down here. If you can get back in, we'll bring you back up.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Keith. All righty. So as you can see, because of the storm that's happening in Nashville, I think he's the possibility of his internet going down. So these are the incredible challenges that we have. Nashville, imagine Nashville. They've got snow down there and ice, and they're not prepared for any of this. They're not prepared for the kind of trucks you need and the sanding trucks and the plows that we have up here in New York. We got a couple feet of snow, and everything just stays normal. People driving it, they deal with it, we plow it, thank you very much. We go through life like it's nothing, but down in Nashville, it's a very, very different world. So going back to this question, this drum that I have here is an old Mohler drum. And what happened was the Cooperman Company is a company that makes these old rope drums. They're manufactured in Vermont. And the Cooperman family has been making this for well over 150 years. It's been passed down tradition in the Cooperman family. And they just are fantastic drums. They're beautiful. It's actually a very light drum. It's not a heavy drum at all. But again, the ropes on the side, you pull down the leather straps, and that's what tightens the head. It's a calfskin head. And the strainer on the bottom is catgut. Catgut. Catgut, in case you don't know, is cat intestine. So many years ago, they used to eat cats when they were fighting in the Civil War and the Revolutionary War in the farce of what they did. And their intestines seem to be very, very strong. So when they dried them out on twigs, they used them, and that's still used at the bottom of this original Mohler drum. So Sanford Mohler was born in the 1880s and died in the 1960s. And, Mohler had this tradition of playing and teaching with his technique as a rudimentalist. And his best student was Jim Chapin. Well, Jim Chapin lived here on Long Island, not that far from where I live. So I was able to meet Jim back in the 60s and have the influence of learning this technique from Jim many, many years ago, as I had also studying with Joe Morello, who lived in New Jersey. So being where I live on Long Island, having access to these players was pretty powerful to be influenced by them. So when Mohler had passed away in either the late 50s or the early 60s, the Cooperman Company contacted Jim Chapin and said, Jim, since you're carrying on Mohler's tradition, and since you have that incredible desire to play with his technique and teach that technique, we want you to have a Mohler drum. So the Cooperman Company sent Jim a drum made by Mohler. So Jim had this drum for many, many years. So when I would go to Jim's house and take lessons, it was so great to have the fact of the ability of being able to see a drum like this in his studio. Well, later on down the line, unfortunately, someone stole that drum out of Jim's car. So Jim lost the drum. And when Jim got older and I went to visit him in the hospital, he would always talk about his days with Mohler and the lessons that he had and the great fun that it was for him. And, of course, the technique that he learned. And he always talked about that old drum that he had. Well, Jim passed away in 2009. And it must have been about just a couple of months after Jim passed away, I get a call from the Cooperman Company. Now, I really didn't know who they were, but they guess tracked me down and found out who I was. So they tracked me down and they said, listen, Dom, since Jim has passed on, we want you to have a Mohler drum since you're carrying on that tradition that Chapin had carried on through Mohler. So I was completely honored. So they mailed me this drum, which is probably a couple thousand, $2,000 or $3,000, these drums here. And these are the drums that they use. If you watched the inauguration recently of the new president, all the drummers that are playing in the old guard, these are the drums they're using. There's a wonderful drummer by the name of Mark Riley who plays in that old guard in D.C., phenomenal drummer, and he plays a Mohler drum like this in that whole concept of old school tradition. So this is a drum that I have here, and I kind of show the workings of the drum to many, many drummers when they come by when I'm teaching certain techniques, and it just is fantastic. So Ray, thanks so much for bringing that up. And yes, you're right. It is an old drum in the way it is. Let's see what Ray had over here. That's a beast of a drum. I used one for Civil War Foothill Armory Band, and it was amazingly highly recommended people to try those traditional drums. Very good, Ray. Good stuff. Well, it really is amazing to experience that level. Mark Bennett, we are frozen down here, okay? In Nashville. Guys, this is normal for us up here in the north here. We kind of come up here with this snow. Well, you guys are down there freezing because you're really not prepared for it. We are up here. So listen, go out there and turn the heat up for sure, guys. Thanks. Let's see. Let's see what we have. Let's see if we can get what's this here now? For a touch of great history, Ray, thanks so much. Jeff Lang, let's see here. Hey, Dom, maybe get Keith on FaceTime and put him next to you. Or we'll sort of be able to pick out the conversation where we left off. Jeff Lang is a phenomenal drummer in the Montreal area. And I'm sure probably in Montreal, they've had their fair of snow also. Well, I don't know how we would get let me see if I can get him on FaceTime here. Let's try it. I'm game to try anything here. Let's see if this will work. I'm calling Keith Dudek now on FaceTime. Let's see if we get him here. Let's see if we have this here. Jeff, I'll take any suggestion. Thanks, all right? Keith, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. So your internet is down?
Yeah.
No big deal.
Pull it up, it's still not coming up, so.
I'm still live here for a few minutes, so I'm going to show everybody here. I've got Keith here now on my phone here. So Keith, let's see if we can continue. I'll see if we can share this the way it is. I love the fact that technology is allowing us to adapt differently in the process here. So here we are here, and you'll be able to watch this, Keith, later on Facebook and also on the YouTube channel. You'll see how I'm doing this here.
Sounds great. So
let's go back, Keith. Let's go back to the fact that you're teaching now out of your home. You've got students that are coming to you, and you're also doing some of the lessons on FaceTime or Skype.
Right. That's correct. FaceTime and Skype is what I usually do my lessons on, just like this on my phone. And it works out really good. I can hear stuff. I just have to make sure that the kids all have metronomes. Because when I try and do a metronome, the lag time between it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, it's really kind of interesting in the fact that how we have to change and adapt. I was talking about this drum in the back that I have, and this is an old Mohler drum that was made by the Cooperman Company. And I'm going to bring up Kevin Lehman. Cooperman no longer manufactures the drum. they make sticks and percussion instruments. They passed that on to Dave Loyal with the Loyal Drum Company, and everyone on those, everything is handmade. Very good point, Kevin. Thanks so much. So this new company, the Loyal Drum Company, is who makes these drums now, and the Koopman does not manufacture them anymore. But this might have been one of the last of the Koopman drums. But the Loyal Drum Company, check them out. Do the research. There's some really, really fantastic stuff.
Awesome.
In the process, you know. But I like this is like Carlos Gutman said, this is like a telethon. Dom is the new Jerry Lewis. I'm going to keep this thing going by hook or by crook, Keith. Fantastic. So Keith, tell me about, you know, you're in the studio now, you're teaching, you got your drums. Let's talk about Mapex for a little while. What Mapex drums do you have back there?
Okay, I have a Saturn 4, but I did get these shells redone on the top. Got them what do you call it?
You had the hoops. You had the
bearing edges. I had the bearing edges.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Upgraded to a Saturn 5. So it is a Saturn 4, but I got the bearing edges of a Saturn 5, which I love the way they sound. I bought the Saturn 4 SNL maple ash burl.
Beautiful.
And I bought some extra special sizes. So I added an 8 and I added a 13. So I have 6 toms total, 4 rack toms and 2 floors. So I can use them in different, you know, if I'm doing a big band gig, I can use smaller drums. Rock stuff, I can use bigger, more drums, whatever. Country is different than that. So it's nice to have the variety of sizes and all that. But I love the way they sound. They tune up really good. I've tried several different head choices on the tops and bottoms, and I like the way they sound in most situations.
Yeah.
I do like the heads that they just give you from the factory, the Remo Emperor clears on the top and ambassadors on the bottom.
Yeah.
That's been my go-to, and that's what they came with. So I've tried other ones, and other ones sound good too, but I just always come back to that because they just sound the best to me.
Well, you know, it's so amazing when you think about just the insanity of how great this company is and what they make and the product that they make, and that you upgraded that kit to that Saturn 5 sound with those sharper bearing edges.
Right. Definitely. It was a good upgrade, and I think it definitely improved the tone. There's more sustain in the toms. I really, really like it. The thing that sold me on the Mapex kits is I was playing in downtown Nashville on Broadway with all the different musicians and gigging the first year or two. I lived in Nashville, and
yeah,
they had all Mapex kits. Joe Hibbs set it up to where he had all Mapex kits all down there. So that was my first exposure to playing Mapex on a regular basis, and I loved the way their kicks and toms sounded. So that was the reason. I met Chris Hankis at PASIC.
Yeah. And
we knew each other through Madison Scouts, and the next thing you knew, I got a relationship going with Mapex. It's been 10 years. So I'm very grateful.
How fantastic. You know, there's not a session that goes by when I do these Mapex All Access interviews where Joe Hibbs' name doesn't come up. This guy was an amazing guy, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, Joe passed away. Actually, it was 4 years ago last Friday. And actually, it might have been 5 years ago. 2016, I think he passed away. And it's, you know, kind of went by fast. But Joe really had the vision of being able to see great talent and bring them into the Mapex family and get them involved, and as he did with yourself too. So it's pretty powerful. And you've got a wide variety of drums there that allows you to play different. Listen, if you're doing a big band date, obviously it's going to be a different kit than if you're doing a country pop gig.
Right. Yeah, it's just I like the variety of it, being able to switch heads and change tuning and use different size toms and use less or more toms or whatever.
Yeah.
It's been really, really fun. I mean, I even switch up on the touring gig that I do. We're not touring now, obviously, but when I tour, sometimes I'll go one up on the kick, you know, one up and a floor tom, and that's it. Sometimes I'll add that second tom in. I like to change it up and keep that variety going. So.
Well, it's amazing how you have that level. You know, listen, you mentioned you have to have the right gear so you prepare yourself to be able to play in any given situation that you're in. Boy, here's a little comment from Dave England. Keith is the man, great performer and educator.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Boy, Keith, you've got some real fans out there, and we've got an amazing amount of people that have logged on from many different countries that are hearing your voice. So in closing, what would you say, Keith, that you would say as a message to all these people that are listening and to the people that are going to be listening to this in the future on Mapex Facebook and also Mapex's YouTube channel? What kind of message would you leave them?
message I want to leave them is keep music fun. Keep the joy in your life by playing music. Don't pressure yourself to feel like you have to make a living at it or you have to be perfect at it. Just keep having fun like you're playing in the sandbox like a little kid. Keep that joy. I have to remind myself of that sometimes because I want to keep growing and moving and expanding my business and getting to be a better player and all that kind of stuff. But like, we have to remember that music, whatever you first started music with, when you first started playing, keep that spirit alive. No matter how old you get and how long you play and whatever gear you have or go through, always remember why you started and what you do it for. I also need to say, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and none of this would be possible for me without my faith in God. And I also want to say, choose to do personal development. I know you have a personal development book out that you wrote, Cycle of Self-Empowerment, correct?
That's correct. Thank you. Yeah, I do.
I bought that book from you, and you signed it for me at PASIC many years ago. Thank you. And I would suggest that book to many people. It's an excellent book. And also just to study personal development. Other than my faith in God, personal development has been one of the most important things for me in my life with teaching and playing and performing and keeping my attitude up through all the downs and the ups and downs of the music industry. So study personal development. Go on YouTube, buy books, subscribe to magazines, learn about your craft, go to PASIC, go to NAMM when they open up again. And those things have helped me tremendously. I'm very, very grateful. That's where I met you. I would not know you if I haven't gone to those things.
Boy, fantastic, Keith. What a great message. So get involved in all the different conventions that they have. Stay true to yourself. Push yourself as far as you can. That's great advice, Keith. I thank you so much. You are really a true leader in the drumming community, and we really need more people like yourself. So stay strong, stay safe, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll touch base soon, Keith. Thank you so much for your time.
I have a special announcement coming out in April, so everybody watch my stuff, watch Facebook and Instagram and all that, and you'll see some really cool stuff coming out in April.
Fantastic, guys. Everybody, follow all of what Keith is doing. Keith, thanks so much. We'll touch base soon.
Thank you, Don. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye. So as you can see with some of the challenges with what, in the snowstorm in Nashville and what the craziness is going on, we made this happen. I thank you all so much for being patient and checking this out. Next week, we'll be doing again for Mapex All Access on Monday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Join us. Be here. We'll have some fun. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much again. Bye-bye. I love this.